Nevertheless, we'd like to give you a contract for the rising stars of manga. And I was like, excuse me? And then I take it home, I read it, and it's a contract because they were doing a contest at the time where you can submit your work and you would get it published under Tokyo Pop and they would distribute it as a manga series. And my mom was very supportive and loving. And she was like, just make sure to read all of that contract in the fine print. I read the contract in the fine print and found that
Hello, it's Messiah from TheBlerdSpot, and we're here with a special guest. We're here with Manny. He is a manga artist. They focus on self-publishing, also focuses on being a creative cultivator for AutonomoCon. So here we are today. I wanted to, see your origin, so to say. Where do your passions start, and how do you get into manga and anime?
it's a great question. I'm so happy to be here. I'm Manny Knight. As you said, manga creator, illustrator, and creative curator for AutonomoCon. My origin story started in East Flatbush in the 90s. I loved all the things growing up that dealt with cartoons and media. I grew up actually in Vanderveer Projects. It was a not so nice neighborhood, very, very 90s. So my mom was very overprotective of me going outside by myself. Because of that, I would watch a lot of TV. And we didn't have cable originally at the time. So channel 5, 7, 11, 13, 21. And if you hit the TV and fiddled with the rabbit ears, you could get Cartoon Network if you're lucky. If you're lucky. So I grew up watching those blocks. I loved Saturday morning cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
I was captivated by what I saw. And one of those days, Sailor Moon came on. And I was like, why does this feel different than Looney Tunes?
Mm-hmm.
The characters feel elongated and a little bit more human. But what was interesting about it was week to week character development versus slapstick where, there's a different gag every episode for cartoons.
Yeah.
So I was attracted to that and the colors. And then other shows started coming on these various networks like Pokemon, Digimon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and other cool shows that were non-anime. And I fell in love with it. Didn't know what it was. Fell in love with it. Thought it was cartoons. And I knew something in me wanted to do that. So I would actually take composition notebooks and start doodling in them, the characters. And then I would go to the 99-cent store with my allowance money that I would get, and I would buy VHS tapes because we had a VHS player, and I would record the Saturday morning cartoon block, and I would pause it on Sailor Moon or Card Captors or Pokemon, and I would draw it frame by frame and try to teach myself how to draw the emotion and stuff like that, which led me down to writing, or what I thought was writing at the time as a kid, and trying to create a story. And they kind of just picked up from there. Fun fact, I saw Dragon Ball Z in Spanish before I saw it in English because of Telemundo.
You know what? I just had a pen where my co-host literally said the same thing.
It was Running the Cell Saga, I think. And I was like, what's happening? And then a little bit later, Toonami and stuff like that, I saw Dragon Ball and was like, oh. But I saw a media and my local comic book shop where I spent a lot of time as a kid, Bulletproof Comics Games on Flatbush. Hank knows me. Wonderful guy. He's ran that shop for about 33 years. Go down there and support your local comic book shop. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. What's with Dragon Ball Z Telemundo?
They had it actually legitimate translated perfectly as was versus our dub that was a little bit more Saturday morning cartoonish. Yeah. I love those dubs. Just to go on a quick tangent, dubs are fine.
I agree.
When y'all talk about loving Cowboy Bebop and Fullmetal Alchemist, y'all watch the English, y'all be okay. Anyway.
So, you did mention how you got into manga. You actually created your own manga. Talk a bit about your story.
Yes. Magna AX. I don't even know how to talk about it, because it's like talking about a sibling that you grew up with. When I was 8 years old, I made a declaration to myself in the mirror of my bathroom that I was going to be a cartoonist or a cartoon creator, because that's what I thought I was. As I got older, around like 10 or so, I started going to the public library, and they had like how to draw manga books. And that's why I was like, manga? Isn't that just anime? And I started to learn the difference between the two, and the difference between like Western and Eastern comics, cartoons, and media. And around 10 years old, on my, I think 10th or 11th birthday, it was around like 2001, my mom gave me birthday money to go get anything I wanted. So I went to a video game store, and I saw this game that looked like an anime called Tales of Eternia. Well, Tales of Destiny 2 in English, because they couldn't get the rights to the term Eternia because of Mattel and He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. So they had to say it was a sequel of a game they already created. And that game changed my life. And I remember taking it home and playing it. And this was like my second RPG, which is a Japanese role-playing game. Mm-hmm. For those who don't know, it's like D&D, but you can like put in input commands and fight and stuff like that. It's very cool. That game inspired me so much that I wanted to do my own story. And that's when Magna AX was created. And I sat there and I filled up 8 composition notebooks and drew and wrote the story cover to cover. And it was about these characters that had special weapons and would go on adventures. And then that story completely changed as I got older. But now the current iteration of Magna AX is an urban fantasy that I'd like to call an RPGX manga, where it's a manga that you can read traditionally, but it has motifs of JRPG-esque and video game language that is cheeky for the audience to read. So like if a character is about to embark on an arc, it says mission start. If they do an attack, it looks like an attack. It's written in a font that I created that would look like for a video game. It covers topics such as hope, resilience, friendships, moral dilemma, grief, and guilt, with themes of action, adventure, romance, and mystery all wrapped into one. I marry the concept of like shoujo and shonen demographic genres together to create a series that I wanted to see as a kid, based off of all the various things that inspired me from the 90s / early 2000s.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Because honestly, it's just shonen and shoujo have elements that make them just so amazing, but like they kind of just sometimes missing pieces. Like shonen, I love it. Action is good, but it's like you can give a bit more emotion there.
Yeah.
Shoujo is like, good emotion, but with a bit more action, and just to put those two together, that's definitely we need more of that.
Thank you. Yeah.
What I actually want to get into it. What anime and video game has the biggest influence on your work?
Wow. So for the video game, I'll go back to Tales of Destiny 2 / Eternia. That game was revolutionary to me. And I got lucky. I picked it up, and it's a story about like race and class. And it takes place in the world of Inferior, where the white character is Inferior lives. And then there's a second world called Celestia, where black people live. Mine was blown. I was like, what is this? And the 2 main characters are from a small town village that are known for their farming and their village color dyes. And one day they meet this girl who falls from space named Merity. And she's black, and they're like, whoa, we have to help her. And it becomes this journey of trying to get her back to her home planet. But it's really her warning them that their planet is in danger and trying to break that language barrier because they speak a different language. And you tackle all kinds of things and subject matter in the game, like race and class and everything in between. And that just blew my mind as like a 10-year-old kid. I was like, you could do this in a video game? Where the characters are like little bobbleheads running around? Like, how are you getting all this emotion out of it? And like, I knew that I wanted to tell similar stories with more contemporary themes while still reflecting the interests of anime and manga, because anime and manga very much does that too. As you know, it tackles hard dilemmas and concepts and fun ones as well. But I knew that I wanted to marry the two and create my own story that would reflect those themes and my own personal experiences as well. And figuring out how do I marry them both. For anime, I couldn't tell you which one is the ultimate one, but I'm a sucker for boy meets girl. One of their lives changes forever. They get dragged into this world. Subsequently, that person's life who brought them into the world changes as well, and they unite in the end. And like, I love that stuff.
Okay.
So I love things like Buso Rank and Flame of Recca, Hitman Reborn, Yu Yu Hakusho,
Classics.
yeah, Rurouni Kenshin. Just I could go on and on and on. Soul Eater. I could go on and on and on. Noragami. Just I love those types of stories because you usually get to see two worlds collide and how they both contrast and how they both compare and can help change another perspective.
That's facts. So like for me, my favorite two have to be Aruka 7.
Because boy meets girl.
And I would say it's still old like for today, but kind of more recent, Guilty Crown.
Oh man, I haven't heard of Guilty Crown in a long time.
Yeah, man.
That's in the same vein of like Pandora Hearts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That one is honestly, I remember first seeing it, I was just like, wow, this is it's I kind of like, I do like romance stories,
I do too, yeah.
but like I like how they balance with like good action as well.
Absolutely.
So like to have that balance is like it adds to the story.
Yes.
You know? So yeah, so those two, after every time everyone likes romance but also likes action, I always recommend those two.
You'll get to recommend Magna now.
On to that, what aspects of your story do you want to highlight?
Oh man. It's a boy meets girl story. But it takes place from the perspective of three characters. The first character is Satoshi Inamada. He is an animatic 16-year-old boy who's a former child soldier who returns home to the city of New Allure in search of a voice that's been calling out to him in his dreams. The second perspective is the secondary main character, Hanasu Nadena, 16-year-old girl who's recently moved over to New Allure City for school programming. And what's special about her is that she has the ability to sing hymns, but hymns that are not in this language, that is almost atmospheric and ethereal. And she often has dreams of the universe, space, and cosmos and feels that there's a greater calling. And the third perspective is from a kid named Tatsuka Tempest, a 13-year-old New Allure City resident who's been wishing for more change and excitement to happen in his life. These three characters all meet on the streets of New Allure City and accidentally uncover that there is something lurking underneath. Monsters are starting to lurk and mysteries are seeping through. And this story takes place in a world called Sekai, which is just Japanese for world. And it's pretty much like a fusion of JRPG fantasy with Avatar, The Last Airbender in a way. Everyone has the ability to use aura. And depending on what your soul trait is or personality, you can manifest that aura. It's not just for combat. You can use it for everyday things. So if you're a fire aura, you could be a baker if you want to and just make good baking bread. Okay. Same thing if you're a water aura user. You can do all kinds of things. 3 years prior to the story of Magna AX, a terrible event called the Grand Disaster happens, which almost destroys the world. It tears the planet asunder. And overnight, suddenly 50% of the world's population at random can't use aura anymore, leaving the people of the cities, towns, etc., scrambling, trying to figure out what their place in the world is without that power, while simultaneously existing with people who still do have that power. You know, politics change and shift in 3 years radically, and 5 independent cities that can't survive on their own get pushed together to create New Allure City, a super city. And that's inspired by Tokyo and its districts and New York and its 5 boroughs. And the characters go on adventures throughout this New Allure City, uncovering the secrets and maybe a subplot behind it that's happening. What makes Satoshi interesting is that he can use arts, which is basically the attack form of aura, despite not being read as an aura user. And Hanasu can sing these powerful hymns despite not being an aura user either. So they're both learning about each other. They have, I would call, a Legend of Zelda-esque like link to each other, where they feel compelled to be around each other, but not necessarily know why. Gags and shenanigans ensues because of their very different personalities. And Tosca is just happy to be a part of something that's bigger than him while struggling to find his place because he has no powers at all whatsoever, period, but is concerned about his city.
Nice. That is, I love it. The complexity, the subplots, the mystery. Because I did actually read the first chapter. So, yeah. So I do love, like, honestly, just the world building, just to be engrossed into it and I'll have to figure out what's happening and like what's going to happen, and especially have characters like to attach onto. Okay, so this is, I should definitely check this out. So your story mentions combining elements of shonen and shoujo. As a creator, how important is balancing emotional storytelling with action and fight scenes?
It's a really great question. I think it just stems back to what I grew up consuming as a kid. I've been writing and drawing Magna AX since I was 8 to 10 years old. 8, just trying to figure out what I wanted to do. 10, naming it Magna AX and really running with the characters. And the one thing I always came back to was very powerful emotional moments that really stood out in my head and epic battles that reflected that. And to me, drama and action are simultaneously the same thing. In my head, you can have an action scene with just dialogue between two characters, and you can have great drama and intensity in a fight without words, So it was really important to me to get those aspects across in the series, because when I think about Magna AX, especially when I'm writing the scripts and creating the story, what comes to me first are the big moments, the struggle, the triumph, the pain, the tears, the happiness, and I kind of write around that and get the central plot.
Okay. That's because I feel like as I'm also an aspiring creator, I think that's also pretty important because I feel like you kind of know the gist of the story, like the big moments, but just how you get to those big moments. How does those big moments affect the world around it? Is what has to be fleshed out. Yeah. Okay. And you also mentioned that, again, you public speaking advocate for self-publishing. You work with creators and speak at conventions. What is something you like to advocate to people or want people to be aware of?
Man, that's a great question. Yeah. Self-publishing is a big one. In terms of like advocating for conventions, I'd say conventions are a wonderful place to be. You'll meet all kinds of people that love the same thing that you love, that do it at a professional level, pursue it as a hobby, simply maybe even just like to dress up and have a good time. It's a safe space for people to just kind of all come together for a couple days and celebrate what they like. Wear it on their sleeve, wear it on their skin, have a great time. And there are different levels to the conventions, and you can do all kinds of things. So if you like education, you can go to a panel and learn something new. You can be a part of a panel and teach something new to somebody. If you love entertainment, you can go for the entertaining parts where it's live performances or character contests or things like that. If you love the arts, you can go and wander down Artist Alley and see people making all kinds of creative work. Or you can be behind the table and apply to Artist Alley and share your work. You can meet wonderful people throughout the whole convention, connecting to these people, kind of like a web almost. And they'll just grow from there, whether you're just an attendee or someone looking to get their toes wet. It's a place for both equal hobbyist, fun, intrigue, and professionalism all in one spot.
That's very true. It's actually my first convention was actually was BlerdCon back in the day, was at St. Francis. Again, like you mentioned, it was a a place where they had actual journalists from the industry come.
That's right.
And how you get into the industry as a journalist. They also have spoke about, the complexity of Star Trek. So people in cosplays. So again, you have, and for me, I love these aspects, but I was pretty much new in this convention space. So again, with comes to cons, again, you have, like you mentioned, you have your professionals, you have people who just try to get their toes wet, or people somewhere in the middle. Conventions definitely go to. I highly recommend that.
I highly recommend it too. There's been such a boom in convention culture as of late because of the boom of like anime, manga, comics in general, that more and more people are attending, which I think is absolutely wonderful. I think a conversation that can be had in convention spaces, although I 100% understand the growth of the conventions and that it's not cheap to rent hall space, as well as get people paid and get people on planes. And there's just so much that goes into booking a convention. They pay for people to fly out and come see you and talk to you. Artists pay for table spots so they'll be able to like show their work. It's a multifaceted process, but we can't also forget that like it should be affordable for the average consumer to come, because you don't want it just to be for the hobbyists that can't afford it. You want it to be able to be available for everyone who helped grow it and will continue to grow it and sustain it. So,
Yeah. So you did mention in regards to, again, accessibility when it comes to conventions. So you are the creative cultivator for TheBlerdSpot. How is that for you? Like, what that came to be? We'll speak more about this convention.
TheBlerdSpot is like a fever dream almost. Like, I learned about it last year on an Eventbrite page. It popped up for like a July convention, and I was like, or August convention, and I was like, how do I be a part of that? I was just starting to go into the convention space myself. It was like my first year conventioning. I was learning how to do it. I was taking Magna AX on the road, which means just do the 5 boroughs. And I was like, I want to be a part of this. And I tried to email the Eventbrite page, but couldn't find any data. But it was being hosted by the Brooklyn Public Library in Grand Army Plaza. So I rang them up, and they're like, you host a lot of events. We don't know which one you're talking about. And I was like on my like computer telling them the event, and they're like, well, you should contact the event page. And I was like, I know, but then it links to you guys, so I'm calling you. And they're like, oh, we don't really know what to do. And so I just spent months trying to like find a way to contact them. To one day they had an Instagram page pop up, and I immediately DM'd them and told them who I was and that I was interested. And then immediately Eileen Level, the founder of Anitomo, who was like, give me your number. We're going to talk. And she was like, we're going to talk for 30 minutes. Ended up being an hour. And we talked a lot about just anime accessibility, conventions, Black people, our love for anime and manga, people of color's love for anime and manga, New York's like growing love of anime and manga year over year over year. And I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And I ended up being a tabler there. I ended up speaking at a panel there, and ended up working with Eileen and doing some workshops here and there. And then next thing you know, she was playing this big one that happened this past July. And she was talking to me about the artist alley. And I was like, you have someone who's helping you with that? And she was like, it's just me. And I was like, well, want some help? And she was like, yeah, I would love some help. And I pitched to her what I had in mind. And she was like, you've been with us for so long. I absolutely trust you. Let's go for it. And I jumped right into it. And I used my convention experience to create a space for the artists that I wanted out of my couple year experiences conventioning. And just to quickly preface that when you do a convention as an artist alley table, it's very long hours. Like you come in around like 8, 9 o'clock, you set up maybe for an hour, and you sell your work. And it's very long hours. And if you don't have a helper, you're kind of there all day. So you have to be able to take care of yourself. And sometimes, because of how busy it is, volunteers are running around and stuff like that, you're kind of left to your own devices sometimes. So I knew as a creative curator, I wanted the opposite. I wanted to spoil them. So like every like 5-10 minutes, I was running around being like, you need food. I would heat them up cup noodles. I would give them fresh fruit. I would give them beverages. I would check on them if they needed a bathroom break. I had to volunteer for them. And I really wanted to give them an experience that was worthwhile for them being a part of this convention and helping us make something beautiful. I wanted to do something equally for them too.
Because you're actually right. I've been to, since 2017, been to a few conventions. And honestly, that's the first time I heard of, because again, normally you don't bring a helper. You're pretty much asked out. So that's the first time I ever heard of convention actually like providing, helping volunteers and having someone check up on them throughout the convention as well. So that's something that I've never heard before. That's just definitely first of its kind, at least I heard of. So kudos to that.
Yeah, it's all a great experience.
That's dope. From your bio, you also mentioned your main focus is empowering creators, leading many instructions, breaking into Artist Alley, and navigating self-publishing. What are a few main things you would tell people trying to break into these spaces?
Nike, just do it. Well, don't like use the Swish because you'll get in trouble. But I think that for me, it's just taking the risk on yourself, even if you don't think that you're ready. I've learned from my experience doing this a long time because, I've been a freelance illustrator, designer, and mangaka for like over like 7-8 years now. And like the one thing that I've learned and continue to learn is when you tell people who you are, they want to help you. When you tell people who you want to become, they will help you become that person. And if they don't know, they might try to link you to someone who does. And the more you put yourself out there and just tell people, you never know who's going to be able to like help you. I told Eileen Level of Anitoma what I do, and we connected over a project that I did, which was my Magna AX characters design in the background of Arizona juice drinks. And she was like, I love this. I need you at the convention. This is amazing. This is like manga and like New York culture right there.
Arizona.
You know? You know, exactly. And I find that the more I proudly speak about who I am, use my name and what I do, even when I'm scared out of my mind and don't even know what to say, something wonderful always happens, or something will happen down the line and they will remember you, especially if you follow up with them and say, here's what I've been doing. This is how I've been. How have you been? Being genuine. Yeah. You know, I took a shot and reached out to you. Yeah. I was like, hey, I see what you're doing. I think it's absolutely awesome. It's really cool. Love to connect and be a part of it. And you were just so cool and gracious and kind. And now I'm sitting here doing an interview about a manga that I've been writing since I was 8 years old.
Exactly. Just never know, just from like just reaching out, never know how, you just never know.
You never know.
You know? And honestly, I was honored that you actually reached out to me. You're like, hey, like, I've seen your work. I was like, oh my God, like people see my work.
Yeah.
And it was just, you know, that, and honestly, in this platform is ideally is for us, for people to reach out and for me to reach out and like, hey, I want you on this platform. I want you to talk about your experience. So maybe someone watching this be like, you know what? I want to go to convention, never know where to go. Now I want to go to convention. I have these ideas of stories I want to do, but I don't know how to go about it. And now I'm going to just do it. And this is really what the platform is for. So again, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely. And 100%, you're right. Like, you never know. Like, I spent my time just teaching myself how to draw. I never really went to a formal school for it. I just studied and studied from how to draw books, picked up comic books, asked friends that were better artists than me, struggled and struggled and struggled, and got decent enough to tell my story, and I still have ways to go. And it's been a journey, and I think what I wanted to do was help curb the process for some people and be what I wanted as a kid. Because when I wanted to do this, when we were consuming it younger, it wasn't as popular.
Yeah.
No one really knew that it was going to blow up.
That's fine.
But they were putting money into it, seeing if it would.
Yeah.
And I struggled a lot as a kid. Like, there'd be times where I'd be at home stressed out with like life stuff going on, family stuff going on, going, am I crazy for wanting to draw something that I don't even know if this is viable?
Mm.
You know, I go talk to people and they're like, I don't know, but I believe in you. And they never forgot about what I said. And then they would think about ways to help me and be like, actually, I bought this book for you. And I'm like, wow, you're not even my family member. You're just like a neighbor and you bought this book for me. And he's like, yeah, I want you to succeed. And I would learn something from it. And like, there were nights where I didn't know if I was going to make it in terms of being an artist and whatnot, or just in general, if I was going to survive tough circumstances in life, but you keep going. And I think I slowly grew into the person that I wished for when I was a kid. So if I can put it forward in some way, 100%, absolutely. So I champion that. You want to learn how to get into an artist alley? On my website, I have a free PDF that I wrote that teaches you how to contact people, because there's equal parts wishing for your dreams to come true and then doing everything you can to prepare, but then you have to take the leap of faith.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's definitely a leap of faith, because this is something that is on my mind for a while. And then, like you mentioned before, sometimes you just got to do it. Because again, you could have try to prepare for everything, but you just don't know what can happen.
Yeah.
But in the day, though, you have to deal with in order to get where you have to go.
Yes, there is a beauty and privilege and luxury of failing.
Yes.
Because it allows you to learn and come back and try it again. As no idea is truly lost. If it doesn't work the first time, you can put it on the shelf and come back to it a little bit later. Sometimes it's even a couple of months, and next thing you know, it blows up. Or next thing you know, it is more satisfactory to what you wanted. You know, I think there's a luxury to failing during your developmental stages versus when the whole world's eyes are on you and it's a lot more critical.
Definitely.
So take all that time to like figure it out. And even when you make it to the next level, you're going to figure it out too still. I'm still figuring it out.
That's fact. Same. So to get a little bit into that, what are some challenges you face in this industry as a self-publisher, but also being a creative cultivator for a con?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. No, please. It's a funny story about that. Back in 2007 through like 2009, there was an Anime NYC here in New York City. It was called New York Anime Festival, and it was ran by Reed Pop that ran New York Comic Con, and it would run in December and November, adjacent to Comic Con's October. The first time I ever attended a Comic Con was, I believe, 2008, and I was like, my mom gave me like a newspaper clipping with a friend and was like, you want to go? We can do Sunday, because it was Saturday. So we went to a Midtown Comics in Manhattan, bought a ticket, went. Mind was blown, overwhelmed. It was like, this is doable? How do I? And then the following year was the first Anime NYC. And a good friend of mine, Jay, was a volunteer there. And he gave me a call and a heads up that they were doing portfolio reviews for manga with a company called Tokyo Pop, which was the Viz of our day, back before Viz really blew up in America. And I actually did a portfolio review there with a friend, and I remember being the last 4 people before they capped the line and would not do any more portfolio reviews for all of the weekend. And I didn't have much. Because my friend told me that like Friday, I attended the convention and went home early that night and drew Magna AX and tried to punch it up as much as I could into 22 pages and put it in a very expensive Blick portfolio that I'd bought and never used because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. So I take it to the convention, and these 2 editors take a look at my work, and they're critical of it, which I welcomed and was like, hey, I got to be better. And he was like, I can't believe you did this on one night with just pencil. Nevertheless, we'd like to give you a contract for the Rising Stars of Manga. And I was like, excuse me? And then I take it home, I read it, and it's a contract, because they were doing a contest at the time where you can submit your work and you would get it published under Tokyo Pop, and they would distribute it as a manga series. And My mom was very supportive and loving. And she was like, just make sure to read all of that contract in the fine print. I read the contract in the fine print and found that if I'd signed with Tokyo Pop, I would only get 4 volumes and they'd have the right to take my name off of it when it came to publishing media and stuff like that. And I knew even then, around like 16, that I wanted to do more than 4 books. I didn't feel that I was well versed in business at all to negotiate or anything like that. And it was at that moment that I realized that I kind of wanted to tell Magna at my own pace. And I kind of wanted to do my own thing, and that I would have to probably go the self-publishing route.
Yeah.
So I emailed Tokyo Pop, because this is the early 2000s and phones weren't that cool yet. We only had Blackberries and Sidekicks. But I said thank you, but no thank you. And then all the people that I bragged to that I got a contract, I turned around and went, I'm not doing it. And they were like, are you crazy? Are you dumb? Just make anything else and use the money for Magna. And I was like, but I just want to make Magna. I'm stubborn and also still 16. And yeah, from there, I kind of like put it on the shelf for a little bit, did some other cool things. And then around 24-ish or 25, it was kind of a now or never kind of thing. And I was like doing a lot of things, but not the thing I want to do. So I jumped into Magna full force.
Okay.
And started brainstorming ways I could self-publish it, and came up with some ways to both do it simultaneously online and invest at home and print it. And I'd say the challenges are, you are the publisher. So on top of drawing, you are the marketer, the editor, the copywriter, the fact checker, the poster of social media. You got to take it on the road, so you're the PR person as well. And it's kind of like pushes into the boundaries of the creative idea of you being the romanticized artist that you sit there and draw and everyone loves your work. You have to kind of step out of that and put on many other hats, which I think is still beneficial to learn, because it teaches you how to present yourself in the best way, how to respect yourself in the best way. And it really teaches you what your boundaries are when it comes to being a public-facing person, if that's something that you desire to be.
Yeah.
As for the creative curator, it kind of flips it, because you become industry adjacent. You start knowing people in the industry, and that becomes lovely. And you're like, oh my God, I'm with these people. I'm hanging out with Viz. I'm hanging out with like Media Blasters. I'm hanging out with like G Kids Entertainment. I'm knowing Japan Society. This is so cool. How do I do something though? But I think it's okay. I'm happy and blessed to be able to work alongside Eileen and Ashley of Anitomo and Justin and the whole entire crew. I'm happy that I'm slowly starting to grow in this space and know these kinds of people and just genuinely be friends with them. And I think that's absolutely beautiful, because this is stuff I like fantasized in my head as a kid, that I would be like doing panels and stuff like that. And I would pretend, all right, this is a wild story. I would pretend and put up like toys and stuffed animals and sit at like my bed and be like, this is the Magna AX panel, and talk about that stuff. And then I'm actually doing it for real. And like, it's a humbling experience. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
Look, what are your future endeavors?
My future endeavors is continuing to work on Magna AX. It's a bi-monthly series, so it comes out every 2 months on the Magna AX website, www.magnaax.com. It's continuing to do workshops and be well plugged into the community. I'm very accessible to find on social media. You can find me on Instagram at MannyK714. Don't forget the K, because people be doing that, and then I can't find y'all and be y'all best friend. So it's, and you know, and somebody took my name, but it's okay. MannyK714 on Instagram, and we have some fun events coming up. We have an Anitomo event happening at the Brooklyn Children's Museum, October, the Sunday before Halloween. I believe that's the 27th or the 28th. and it'll be the Brooklyn Children's Museum's very first anime-themed event. We'll be doing Halloween-themed spirit stuff, and I'm super excited to be teaching a workshop there, and there'll be vendors. Following that, in October, we will have a year in review with Viz Media and a lot of other manga publishers, so we're super excited about that.
Nice.
And yeah, I'm working on some fun things like a Patreon, because your boy's getting out there. And I'm going to launch it on Magna AX's birthday, November 17th.
Nice. Because next question I ask you, what's the best way you can support you?
The best way you could support me is to pay my rent. I'm kidding. No. Wouldn't we all like that? The best way you can support me is to come see me at conventions. I usually, on my Magna AX website and on the newsletter, I have a calendar of events. I do updates on when the chapters are dropping and other fun things like character polls, who's your favorite character, language translation, because there's a fantasy language in the manga that you can actually translate on the website. And now, soon, November 17th, I have a Patreon with some cool, fun perks on it.
Nice.
And I'm looking forward to all of that coming up.
Perfect.
24 years, Magna's going to be 24 years old. That's a chunk of my life because I'm like 32.
It's a big chunk. And here you have it at the TheBlerdSpot with special guest Manny. Again, don't forget to, YouTube is everything first. So like, subscribe on YouTube, Instagram, TheBlerdSpot. And again, don't forget to also follow, support Manny as well. Cheers.
That was so fun.
It was fun.
That was so fun.
All right.